Okay. Let me fix that. Get that off the screen. See if that populates over here. Streaming. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Pull that up. Drop that in. And I should be able to do this. That goes there. There we go. Done deal. Hello, everybody. Hello. Welcome, my friends. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining me today. It's Monday. We're back. We're back another week, another day of trying to get our finger on reality and kind of figure out what's going on, put it all together. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me last week. I know it was like I was all over the place. I canceled 2 shows. I'm really sorry about that. We had some things come up, and also I've been struggling with burnout, trying to figure out what to do, how to kind of make things work for me so that I don't burn out. And what I will say is, I'm trying to figure that out. I think we're going to start to move some things. I'm going to cut back on things like Firebrands United more so. There'll be a lot more sparing, more targeted kind of, intermittent conversations, not something I'm going to do regularly. I'm going to go ahead and cut back on the weekly shows. I think I'm going to move, the Firebrand shows, like the rant and the dialogue and things like that to a bi-weekly kind of a deal, because I just really need to make sure that I'm able to get everything done, but also, do what I think is most important, which is the Firebrand Report, delivering on that, as well as the investigative writing that I'm doing. And that's where we're going to need to really, centralize and focus our efforts. So in that regard, that's what we'll definitely be doing. And we've kind of reached a point of diminishing returns with the live streams and everything like that. So like doing 6 a week is not going to propel us in terms of growth any more than it was if we just kind of do what we are doing. So in that sense, I think it's just better to focus on this and what we're doing here to make sure that I'm able to do it well. And that's just reality, right? So that's just reality. And, I can't do it all myself. And so, once we reach a point of profitability that we can expand and do all those things, we will do that. But for the time being, we got to work with what's in, our what's within my power to do well. And when we're talking about things like this, I want to make sure that my information is accurate and verifiable. And that's what we got to keep doing. So that's the most important thing. And so that's making sure that I show up and am able to do that for you guys is most important. And with over 100 over 150 of you guys as paid subscribers, I feel that I owe it to you to do, if I'm going to do something, I want to do it well. So I appreciate you guys doing that. And I've been working on ways to better flush out exactly how I am delivering my research using my tools. and especially in regards to being able to take all of these things that we talk about every day and kind of synthesize better. So I've developed a kind of a new resource aggregation method, um, and seems to be working pretty well. But this is going to be the first episode that I use this for, and definitely want feedback on the format, because the goal, obviously, with the report is to give you guys a bigger, more kind of uh, interconnected understanding of everything. So I very much want to hear your feedback, whether you're watching this as the recording or you're watching now. Kind of let me know what you think of this format, and kind of how I lay things out, because I think it will be. I think it is. It's positive, and I do like it. So I think it'll be a cool opportunity to kind of see if I can do things a little better, and more collected in my thoughts. And I will say that as certain particular aspects of AI tools, research tools in particular, get better, there is certainly a benefit for me, because I am looking at so many different lanes simultaneously that I do need help, making sure I catch all those things. And having done this for months and months of me kind of knowing now where all the lanes exist, I've been able to kind of create a format and a method of research that kind of grabs all those things at once, and allows us to look at them all kind of side by side. So and in this regard, we have a pretty significant report today, um, because what we're going to look at today are four conflicts, around the world. Some of them are active. Some of them are shooting wars right now. Some of them are, on the verge of, becoming a larger scale war. But we're going to look at four conflicts, and we're going to really dig into the meat of those conflicts and see kind of where they're at. So, and tie them all together in regards to those things. So, in that sense, I have, for the format of this, what you'll see in the show notes are as follows. So you're going to have the Reuters article itself. So that's going to be, in this case, kind of my trigger, or the initial source that led me down the road, to provide you with the analysis that will come with that article. So what's not going to change is, we'll touch briefly on the article, and then we're going to go into something, which I'm going to kind of call the Firebrand summary analysis, which is where we'll look at all those things that we tend to commonly look at, and see where those connections align. So in that case, that'll be a little different. All this will be in the show notes, and the idea too with this is that these reports that I'm able to generate will provide us with a summary. And know that I do verify all of this information. I go and check out these links myself. This is not just some regurgitated AI bullshit. Like, this is targeted search, with things that I have verified. So we'll look at that together, and then you will have my written thoughts and analysis on top of that. So in that sense, that's kind of what's different. That's what's the same. And with all that laid out, ready to go, let's go ahead, and we're going to take a look at four conflicts today, and look at those conflicts, and really try and get the full scope of them, what they mean, for the world. Because we are looking at, I don't really know any nice way to put it, other than, like, this is kind of like a world war moment. Like, there's wars everywhere. I don't, there's not a continent, maybe short of Australia, that doesn't have a war on it right now. Maybe not Antarctica, but in that sense, not a lot of places you can go that there's not war or on the verge of war. So that's our world that we live in, and I'd rather you guys know what's going on and know about these conflicts than not know, because they do and will have global consequences. So for those of you who have noticed or noted, and this is something we've talked about fairly uh, several times, fairly frequently, was the supposed peace deal between Trump and the the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and the Rwandan government. Oh, and before we do that, sorry guys, it is December 15th, 2025, in the fascist states of America, and the world is on fire. So let's talk about it. Okay, our first conflict. Why the fight in Rwanda and the Congo matters, because there's a ongoing conflict, and we just saw a massive escalation in the Congo. So I'm going to go ahead. We'll take a really quick look at the reporting, and then I've got a really solid breakdown of kind of why this conflict matters. So the reporting we saw today effectively is we have reporting coming out of the Congo that M23 has captured hundreds of Burundi soldiers in a Congo offensive. Burundi is a PMC, private military contractor group, that is working as the elite soldiery for the Congolese federal military. So the Rwanda-backed M23 group has captured hundreds of Burundian soldiers during its latest offensive in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, a rebel official said, as clashes continued despite a warning from the Trump administration. Last week, M23 entered the strategic town of Uvira near the border with Burundi, less than a week after the president of the Congo and Rwanda met in Washington with U.S. President Donald Trump, and affirmed their commitment to a peace deal known as the Washington Accords. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said on Saturday that Rwanda's actions in Eastern Congo violated the Washington's Accords, and vowed to take actions to ensure the promises of the president are kept. Ooh, Marco Rubio. He's the fear everyone's afraid of, little Marco, soulless Marco. Rwanda denies supporting M23 and has blamed Congolese and Burundian forces for the renewed fighting. A United Nations group of experts report published in July said Rwanda exercised command and control over the rebels. This is not the first time this has come out either. We have several hundred Burundian soldiers with us whom we captured during combat, and we intend to return them home. Patrick Busu-Bois Nui, the M23 appointed governor of the South Kivu province, told the press on Saturday. Let's see. The M23 has staged a lightning offensive since January. They have taken two of the Congo's biggest cities in fighting that has killed thousands of people. Displaced hundreds of thousands more. The Congo is rich in minerals, supplying 70% of the world's cobalt, as well as significant volumes of tin, tantalum, and tungsten. The Trump administration hopes that an eventual peace deal would clear the way for significant Western investment in mining in the Eastern Congo. A local official appointed by the governor in Kinshasa told Reuters on Monday that the Congo's military and allied forces has withdrawn from Makobala, 12 kilometers south of Uvira, and were reorganizing to try and take back its lost territory. A source within M23 told Reuters the rebels were in Makobala. So here's, that you've got this development in the Congo with Rwanda, and you have Trump's peace deals, and I've said this before. All of Trump's peace deals, they are just rare mineral extraction deals. Okay, like rare earth mineral extraction deals. It's very simple. You can take a pen and every country circle a fucking little element. You put it right there. It's like, oh, yep, that's the one they got. That's what they're mining there. So the first thing I want to kind of, as we go through this, there's different vectors that we need to look at each of these conflicts, and so the first vector is going to be capital. So the official narrative that's coming out from M23 is framing them as a political aggressor. They're saying they're an advocate for local ethnic group rights and border security. However, they are basically a proxy force backed by the Rwandan government in an effort to take over the global tech supply chain. Because we talk about supply chain a lot, we talk about these minerals, but you know when we're talking about the supply chain, there's a lot of things that only actually come out of Africa. China does control the refining capacity in a lot of cases here, but some of these minerals do need to be extracted from these African countries. And when we're looking at Rwanda, what you're seeing is M23 as a vehicle to occupy Eastern Democratic Congo territory. And if we go back and we look at what has been seized, this actually begins to make a lot of sense. So the first asset are the Rubaya mines. They were seized in mid 2024, early 2025, and they produce 15% of the world's tantalum, which is vital for capacitors and smartphone, missile guidance systems, you name it. Right. And now they've established a taxation ministry in these areas, and they are taxing the exports, imports of things like tantalum and coltan. Sorry, not cobalt, coltan, which is another key mineral here. So that's the first asset. And now they're charging, $7 a kilogram on these coltan exports. So we see real, tangible, verifiable evidence of them seizing these assets and then basically extorting companies coming in and out that need this resource, and they will continue to acquire this resource. It doesn't matter who's in control of it. So, Rwanda is doing that. And then we have you have the Uvira transport node, which was just captured. This is a big development, right? It sits on a lake called Lake Tanganyika and the RN5 highway. By taking this, M23 has cut off the main supply line for South Kivu, the region where all of these things are, as well as it allows them to basically take all of this gold, because there's massive gold mining in the Congo as well, coming out of the Mwenga highlands. So it's a huge, huge, huge target that they've successfully taken, not only militarily, but logistically as well. Really helps them solidify their position there. The third, and this is something that we're going to see them push for, is the Katanga Copper Belt. The push into South Katanga, which is something that they're talking about. This move is effectively going to, the largest cobalt reserves and copper are in this region. So as they push, they're going to threaten something called the Lobito Corridor, which is an effort from the West to basically have an alternative supply chain that's not through China. China has invested significantly in Rwanda. And in the same things, late 2024, 2025, Rwanda has deepened its ties with Moscow. You saw Lavrov there. You see nuclear deals as well happening in Rwanda as well with the Russians. There is basically Rwanda is doing a really smart thing, right? So they have they have something that everyone needs. And so what they're doing effectively is saying, I'm not necessarily going to work with anyone. But if you push me, I can just turn off. I'll just go to the other guy. Rwanda has massive investment from China in terms of infrastructure, and so Chinese companies have mines. That said, M23 is actively attacking those Chinese mines as well. So, they're also putting pressure on, China. China definitely probably has more of a leverage in this case, but it is very much a situation where you see an opportunity from Rwanda to use M23 as a proxy state to establish de facto control over these key resources that the world is going to need. So, Rwanda is attacking its neighbor, the Congo, to seize its resources and establish control at a very key moment in time. And it just goes to show how vulnerable these supply chains are. So, if you look at it from a perspective of phases, right? You have this coltan supply that was seized, and then now we're looking at the seizure of Uvira, which gives them logistics, gold, threatening the Lobito corridor, the Katanga region. You're going to see them move in on that copper and that cobalt. And copper is worth a lot of money right now, guys. Everyone wants some copper. So, Rwanda's in a very strong position because the Congo can't. It's becoming pretty clear that the DRC is on the back foot here. They're not in a winning situation, and that is kind of the nature of the situation, especially them capturing these guys who are supposed to be more of the creme of the crop. So it just goes to show that a lot of these African militaries, there's not a ton of incentive to hold your ground when the government doesn't even always fill your paychecks. Or it's like, is it worth dying? And a lot of these people are like, no, not really. So yeah, and that's really what I think is really important when we're looking at this conflict to understand is that the implications here is that Rwanda becomes very powerful. And the United States is not going to militarily back the DRC. China is going to play nice because they don't want Rwanda to, cut off their access in these places. They've invested considerable money into building up these supply lines. So it does make a lot of sense. And Rwanda maintains deniability as long as it operates through M23. But they are directly directing M23. So, the UN has verified that they are, in fact, operating directly through M23. They are in the command and control capacity. So this is really a huge linchpin in the global supply chain right now. It's something that we're going to see having global far-reaching effects. And with the AI race, what it is right now, with supply chain being what it is right now, with the desperation the United States is facing, in that sense, hey Mick, in to get access to these materials, very clear, very obvious, maybe not obvious, but very clear that we're looking at a situation where the DRC is on the back foot, and there's definitely a considerable argument that as things increase in terms of severity and pressure from M23, you might see the Congo itself collapse, which would be a huge power vacuum in Africa. The Congo is huge. It's really big, and there's a lot of resources there. So that's going to be a huge resource vacuum and could potentially become a massive proxy war as things continue to escalate. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and just the amount of different players involved, considering you have the United States, Russia, and China kind of with all of their eggs in the same basket. It's really important we watch this. So what else do we have going on? So we're going to go ahead and shift our way out of Africa for this next war, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk about Ukraine and Europe, because there's some really massive shifts going on in Europe, and I think it's really important that we talk about the ramifications of how this how the conflict is changing, how the United States actions have reshaped Europe, and some of these key developments, and what I think they mean in terms of what's going on. So there's a couple articles here that we wanted to touch on really quick that were kind of the catalyst for looking into it in this capacity. The first, you have reporting from Reuters coming out and saying that Basically you have reports that the United States behind closed doors is pressuring Kiev and Zelensky prior to a meeting in Berlin to give up the Donbass. So, this is what Trump said. Uh, we're trying to get it done. Let's see what he said. Oh yeah, we're trying to get it done. We had numerous conversations with President Putin of Russia, and I think we're getting closer now than we've ever been. Ever. And we'll see what we can do. So in that sense, it's just a lot of fucking lip service, a lot of bullshit. Zelensky, when asked of the, concessions, he described them as painful, saying that, frankly speaking, we still have different positions, but he said that he believed the U.S. mediators would help find a compromise. Kiev's negotiators will continue consultations with U.S. counterparts, he said, adding that Ukraine needed a concrete understanding on security guarantees, including the monitoring of a ceasefire before any decisions related to the war's front lines. U.S. officials told Reuters by conference call they secured an agreement on 90% of the issues. Though longstanding territorial issues remain, one said, we've got multiple different solutions to bridge the gap. Ukraine has said previously it would not cede territory to Russia, which has taken almost 20% of the country and its east and south since the full-scale invasion in February of 2022. Zelensky has been holding talks with the Kush Lord and Witkoff, both morons. And for the first time since the war began, the possibility of a ceasefire is conceivable, said German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, who hosted the meetings in a post on X. You have a lot of polls currently in Ukraine. You have a poll by the Kiev International Institute of Sociology that found 70% of Ukrainians were prepared for a deal that froze the current front line, but 75% believed a Russian-friendly plan that included Ukraine ceding more territory or capping the size of its army without receiving clear security guarantees was completely unacceptable. So, in the large scale of all of this, there's a couple things here. One of the one of the other really big things that just happened, obviously, is the EU actually went ahead and froze $210 billion in Russian assets. So they went ahead and did that. But before we talk about that and go a little bit farther into the report, it's worth noting as well that today, Germany and Zelensky had a visit, in which case Germany provided a 10-point plan for peace. So now you have Germany, which is taking a very, very central leadership role in this kind of new phase that we're going to talk about, has come out and said that they have a 10-point plan. And so this is what you have. European leaders have Germany will deepen its commitment to Ukraine's defense through joint ventures, through market integration, possible federal investment guarantees under a 10-point plan unveiled on Monday during President Volodymyr Zelensky's Berlin visit. European leaders have sought to send a message to Donald Trump that the continent continues to stand behind Ukraine as the U.S. president has sought to accelerate diplomatic efforts to end the nearly 4-year-old Ukraine war. A strong Ukrainian defense is crucial for defense against Russia's war of aggression and is an important element of security guarantees to deter future Russian aggression, said the document shared during Zelensky's trip to Berlin as part of the continued peace talks with U.S. envoys on Monday. Joint procurement of Ukrainian-made defense equipment to protect NATO airspace within the European Sky Shield Initiative, particularly interceptor drones, will be examined. Both countries will cooperate more closely on defense-related research, joint ventures, procurement with Germany, Ukraine's largest supporter in Europe, looking for the use of federal investment guarantees. Germany will also boost its military attaché presence in Kyiv and set up expert exchanges, according to the statement. Germany and Ukraine would also take comprehensive measures to prevent graft. It said, acknowledging Western concerns about Kiev's biggest additional corruption scandal of the war that prompted the resignation of 2 ministers and Zelensky's chief of staff. Okay, so there's a couple really big things that just happened in Europe. But what's important here is we kind of go into the summary and look at these things. We're going to talk a little bit about the Donbass, why the U.S. obviously keeps pushing on the Donbass, as well as I kind of want to talk about as well, just what is going on in Europe and the broader implications of that. So, first of all, obviously I want to start with the contradiction. So the official narrative here frames the Battle of the Donbass as, Russia trying to invade Ukraine and ethnic cleanse and do all of these things, which is certainly true. Okay. They are going to ethnically cleanse the people of Ukraine. They are forcing them into buses to conscript them to go and fight and die to take their own country for Russia. But the reality is that you're looking at trillions of dollars in assets in the Donbass. It's well known for mining, for being, rugged, hilly territory, lots of deposits. So let's just go ahead and I'm going to give you guys some real tangible examples of why the U.S. wants them to just give up the Donbass without fighting, which, mind you, Ukraine has been fortifying the Donbass since 2014, for years, since the invasion of Crimea. It would make no sense for them to give up their strongest defense lines prematurely, let Russia occupy those territories, occupy those defense lines, which it will never be able to take back, and effectively just have to redig and refortify all of their positions. So, in terms of what's in the Donbass, so you're looking at a shitload of lithium, of course. Donetsk Oblast near the Velika Novosilka and Pokrovsk axis. Okay, we know what's going on. We know Pokrovsk. It is one of the largest hard rock lithium deposits in all of Europe. They need this for EVs, data centers, all of these things. If Ukraine gives this up, effectively it's giving up its domestic access to lithium, to its own tech industry, which would make a lot of sense. The anthracite coal, there's a massive coal basin in Ukraine. Russia is not afraid to use just about any forms of energy production, and the anthracite has the highest energy density for coal, so it's very, very good. It's used for their thermal power plants, for heating, all of these things as well. What else is exceptionally interesting is you have something called the Yuzivska gas field, spanning from Donetsk to the Kharkiv oblasts. You have massive shale gas reserves, 1 to 2 trillion cubic meters, and Shell was actively involved in developing these gas fields up into the point of the invasion of Ukraine in 2022, when a lot of these companies pulled out of Ukraine for obvious reasons. You have titanium and zirconium, both in Ukraine, major deposits in the West, as well as a lot of salt for all of the chemical industrial processes that you're looking at, right? So, why do they want the Donbass? Lithium, coal, gas. They want to seize those assets. And then, it's very clear that probably the conversation is, okay, we'll share with you, United States, who is effectively iced out of the rare earth mineral supply chain, all of these things, so that you can make up your ground in your big tech, situation where you're just getting your shit absolutely wrecked by China. So, this peace deal is basically, the Berlin peace deal is not about, drawing a line on a map. It's about who gets to control the future of resource extraction in Europe. Is it Ukraine, the sovereign country on whose territory that those resources are held? Or is it going to be Europe and the United States, who want to implement some sort of a peace plan in which they can extract minerals from Ukraine? And that is exactly why I think what you are going to see as you want them to just give up the Donbass arbitrarily because they cannot physically take it. That's the thing, is like they can't take the Donbass. If they were going to take the Donbass, they would have taken the Donbass. This winter is going to kick Russia's ass. Ukraine has done, if anything, they have stepped up their long range strikes. They've recently developed their own domestically produced cruise missiles that fucking rock. And they're doing they're doing a lot of damage to Russia, and they're attempting to use political leverage to take what they can't take by force. And the United States is desperate enough to ally with Russia to do that. So, as we talk about that, you have an official narrative where, Berlin is talking about compromise, where the United States is acting as a broker. They're involved in, peace. Realistically, if we look at the situation, this is the United States, Kushner and Witkoff are acting as proxy agents for Russia. And basically they want, like we said, capitulation by contract is the wording that was used here. So in that case, they're basically trying to, like we said, get Russia what they want without having to fight Ukraine for it under the pretext of peace, when we know Putin will not stop. There is no peace plan ever. There will never be peace in Ukraine until Russia is defeated. Full stop. So, there's a couple ways they're going to do this. They're pressuring, Ukraine still controls 20% of the Donetsk region. And so the entire idea here is you have Ukraine, and there's a reason Ukraine says they will kind of indulge this type of behavior. Well, we won't join NATO. We want to join the EU. They're all of these things. So the reason I say that, these peace plans, Ukraine will agree to anything, is very simple, because Russia will not agree to a peace plan. Under any circumstances, Russia will not agree to a peace plan. Any peace plan that Ukraine would agree to that's acceptable by Russia includes the capitulation and the secession of all of the Donbass territory, in which case it would probably turn around and invade Ukraine, after taking a year or so to defend itself. So basically they're just trying, and Ukraine is going to give up its, we're going to make these concessions, whatnot, but realistically, they can pretty much agree to 98%. And we've been going in this loop with Ukraine, this cycle of, peace, like, just get it, like, just accept, like, believe me or don't, but I'm going to say that there will never, the very idea of a peace plan is ridiculous. It will not happen ever. Ever. So it's just not going to happen. Putin will not stand for it. So, what are the larger implications here? Obviously, when we're looking at what's going on, particularly in Europe, what we've seen actually is this huge shift in the last 2 or so weeks. And this really started when we were looking at, earlier on, this idea of Witkoff and Kushner and this weird illicit deal being made between them behind Europe's back. And we're like, what's going on here? And as we started to look into that, what we started to see was Europe, I think, has finally come to the conclusion that it really didn't want to come to, which is that the United States is acting as a Russian proxy, and there is no there's no US. Okay, so Uncle Sam's not coming in any capacity. Uncle Sam is really only interested in himself, and that's the end all be all of it. And you actually saw the EU, they used some bylaws and whatnot in the EU constitution to actually circumvent certain rules to allow for majority voting. Usually the EU, when it makes any decision, has to be unanimous. However, recently they made some changes that allowed them to, by popular vote, freeze the Russian assets, which effectively, gets rid of these holdouts like Belgium or Hungary, right, who are just fucking proxy states of Russia. These guys now, they don't matter, and they have effectively frozen $210 billion in Russian assets. Essentially, what they just did is they just made Ukraine and them a sovereign wealth fund, and these assets are frozen indefinitely. So at this point, there is not they're not going anywhere. They're frozen. Russia's like, we're gonna sue. What do you think the ICC is gonna fucking prioritize your case, Russia, when you're committing war crimes actively? I mean, it's such bullshit, right? They're a paper tiger, right? That's the whole Russian thing. It's all paper tiger. So, and then Europe has to be realistic, right? You see the NSS framing Europe as an adversary. So they're not, they're claiming Europe has this migrant crisis and they're the worst, and they, are contrary to democracy, right? This national security strategy, icing on the cake, right? Like, oh God, the US doesn't want to fucking help us, or saying whatever. So what the realization here is that not only does Europe need Ukraine, Ukraine needs Europe, but they only together can Europe beat Russia with Ukraine. No one has been fighting Russia as long as Ukraine. And Ukraine has demonstrated that it can hurt Russia. If the United States is not going to help Europe, then they will work together, because together they can effectively beat Russia. Now, there's a couple factors here that are limiting at this point in time. The first being that obviously their military industrial capacity is lacking. Okay. However, together, if the EU has these $210 billion of Russian money, their own sovereign wealth fund, that will not be returned to Russia until they've paid reparations, right? So they're never going to fucking get that. Russia's never getting that money back, which the US is pissed about because they're a Russian proxy. But there's nothing they can do about it. This is not US money, it's EU money. So the other interesting half of this is that Europe is in a very different situation than the United States. And it's because of one particularly interesting facility located in France called the Solvay-La Rochelle plant. So this is a plant in France that is capable of processing every single rare earth element and rare earth metal needed for the military industrial complex. This is the only one that Europe has. However, unlike the United States, it does in fact have the capacity to refine and supply its own supply chain with those materials outside of Chinese delivery, which is not something the United States has. Beyond this, you're starting to see fractures between the United States economy and the EU and in Canada. And what you're starting to see here, where it gets really interesting, is you have Canada and Europe now doing direct exchanges. So traditionally, things would go through down through Canada to the US to Europe. Now you have Canada doing basically bilateral trade with Europe, not including the United States. You have this cyclic situation where Ontario will send materials to Solvay in France. Solvay will process those, send them back to Canada. The United States is not required. Additionally, tariffs have created a situation where China actually has arranged something in November 2025. The EU negotiated a special channel with China that allows their companies to get expedited access to permitting to use Chinese rare earth minerals. So they now have expedited access to the materials they need to develop their military industrial complex. The United States has effectively been iced out um, of this situation. And where traditionally maybe the West would be, experiencing a withholding of those resources together, in this case, EU doesn't matter. What we're seeing is the beginning of Fortress Europe. And what is interesting about this is what we're seeing is part of a pattern in which the United States leverage has effectively been dismissed. This is Europe saying, you know what, dude, we're fucking done with you. Because at this point, all of the leverage the US has, if the US is not going to defend Europe, that was its leverage over Europe. It just goes to show how short-sighted and stupid these people are, because the only real leverage the United States had over Europe was that it was going to defend Europe. By throwing that away, they've effectively just cost themselves their influence. And we're seeing the situation develop around the United States, and this is just another example of how Europe has evolved, and they've pushed U.S. influence out, and we're going to see Europe change here. They've put their foot on the gas. The squabbling's over. They can act, from the perspective of more decisiveness using this majority votes, this coalition of the willing. They're stating basically that any peace agreement must have European troops on the ground in Ukraine. The threat from Russia to go to war with Europe is existential, and the US isn't going to be there to back them. So they're going to take action, and Canada is going to be a huge part of that because of their industrial capacity, as well as their abundance of access to resources, tons of resources in Canada. So there's our overview on Europe. We got two more conflicts. We might go a little bit over, but I do want to make sure I catch on all of these things for you guys. So this next one, as of now, we're going to go to the Indo-Pacific. So we have what I'm thinking we're going to see an imminent reflaring of the Indian-Pakistan conflict. And whilst what I'm going to share with you isn't, what you might think is, oh, Shane, this means war. After I explain to you, kind of the situation, I think maybe you'll see why I'm predicting that this might be the case. So India's anti-terrorism agency on Monday charged militant Islamist groups based in Pakistan and 6 individuals over April's attack on tourists in the Indian Kashmir region that killed 26 men, triggered intense fighting between the two countries. The fighting, the worst between nuclear-armed neighbors in a decade, was sparked when militants opened fire at tourists in Palgam region of India and Kashmir. New Delhi said the attack was backed by Pakistan and the allegations, which Islamabad has denied. Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Taiba, LET, and its offshoot, the Resistance Fronts, TRF, were charged for their alleged role in planning, facilitating, and executing the Pahalgam attack, according to the statement from India's anti-terrorism agency. 3 Pakistani men killed by Indian security forces during Operation Mahadev in July. Srinagar, Indian Kashmir, were charged with posthumously. The statement said another 2 men already in custody were charged. A spokesperson for Pakistan's foreign ministry did not immediately comment. The 1,597-page document was filed before special court in the Jammu region of India and contained the first formal charges of the attack. The NIA traced a conspiracy to Pakistan. And the statement said, adding that the LET and TRF, along with the 6 other men, were charged with waging war against India. Okay, so Shane, why the hell does that mean war? Well, just because the official narrative, right, being that the NIA is basically charging these guys for a terrorist attack. However, by targeting this particular group of people retroactively, it's creating a situation that kind of reignites the circumstances that started the July the May-July conflict in India and Pakistan. Now, by saying that these particular people, the LET, are responsible, they're essentially out, giving Pakistan the kind of the leadership capacity. They're saying that Pakistan is leading these people, very similar to how Trump is saying, oh, the Tren de la Agua, or what, Maduro is running all the drug traffickers. Okay. So, as of right now, this document serves as a military purpose to label the Pakistani state as the official handler of a terrorist organization that allows India to engage in a cross-border pursuit of fugitives named in the document, which supposedly is the Pakistani government, right? So you see where we're going here. Pakistan has created the Resistance Front to evade the Financial Action Task Force sanctions. When the LAT was banned, they just rebranded them, and the TRF is now basically considered the indigenous funder, the state, indigenous state terrorism. Okay, so with these charges, now they become state-sponsored combatants, which gives India more flexibility. You have a lot of things going on. You've got soft and hard leverage being used by India, the Indus Water Treaty, which is where India provides a ton of water to Pakistan through its rivers, the Chenab and Jhelum. Effectively, this basically says we can turn off your agricultural capacity if we choose to withhold water from these rivers. So, and if you want to take this, even farther, at this point, Modi is looking at elections in 2026. So as of right now in 2026, Modi is facing an election. He is currently redrawing districts. He's fucking with the census. He is an autocrat, 100%. He is running a nationalist agenda, and war is one of the most helpful scenarios when you are trying to consolidate power. Arresting journalists, Modi's done it. Trying to, surveil mass surveillance, Modi's trying to do it. Election interference, Modi's doing it. Okay, so Modi is an autocrat, 100%. And, he's in a situation where, his power is potentially threatened. And so he's going to probably take advantage of a potential conflict to, centralize his nationalism and garner support, as well as maybe cover up some of the, the shifty things he's going to do. You also have to consider that Pakistan is pretty much exclusively buying Chinese weapons. It's become a test bed for Chinese military kit. And recently, Pakistan deployed HQ-9 air defense systems and Chinese J-10 fighters against Indian Rafales, and they did actually shoot down some of these Rafales, which is a big deal, because now you're seeing, the fact that, China can shoot down Western, tech. The more tech that Pakistan gets from China, the stronger it's going to become militarily. India and China are rivals. They have had full-blown hot wars in the last 50 years, and there is 100% a lot of tension there. What India is actually looking at is if Pakistan arms to a point where India loses its military superiority, which is what we saw in May, is that, oh shit, they can shoot down our fighters. And it gets to that point, it will be trapped between Bangladesh and other Chinese proxy states in the east, Pakistan in the west, and China to the north. It really doesn't have a choice. If India waits 1 to 2 years, Pakistan will have 6th generation Chinese stealth jets. They'll have the best air systems, and their technological advantage is going to go away. China is now sending stealth submarines to Pakistan, and it's going to make it harder for India to blockade Pakistan. So basically, India is facing a choice. Do they wait to basically fight Pakistan and then end up at a disadvantage and potentially fighting China and Pakistan at the same time? Or do they attempt to strike Pakistan now while it's weaker and they still hold some level of technological advantage? You pair all of those things together, Modi's need for nationalism, the timeline itself, and the type of language we've just seen being used, it appears to me that based on the circumstances we're looking at, that India is going to adopt a kind of Israeli model of striking terrorists where they are, not really giving a shit about the sovereignty, and those terrorists are the Pakistani government. India's kind of stuck, and Modi's an autocrat, and all of the pieces, if you put them together, kind of unfortunately point towards another one of Trump's supposed peace deals going entirely awry. So as we, continue our journey from the Indo-Pacific and Pakistan and China, we are going to go check in with a active hot war that's going on right now. And we have some pretty significant escalations in the war between Thailand and Cambodia. So I'm going to go ahead and read you this update from Reuters, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about the conflict between Cambodia and Thailand, and kind of get you guys up to speed on what I think you need to know about that current war. So on today, Thailand's military has said that it has stopped fuel shipments passing through a border checkpoint in Laos because of fears they were being diverted to Cambodia, with which it is fighting a fierce border conflict. We've established this. They're fighting at multiple locations along the 870-kilometer, 508-mile border. Both sides are continuing to fight, despite the fact that Trump called, "Hey, I want you to stop it. Stop it. There's no need to kill each other. So much death. I don't get it. Stop." And then they said Q to Trump. So that didn't work out. And so there was talks of a peace summit to take place on Tuesday, which Thailand has summarily requested now take place on the 22nd. So they pushed that back an additional week. And the closure of the border with Laos is a big deal. So they're effectively cutting off the supplies of oil shipments into Cambodia. So the military, having restricted the movement of the fuel supplies through the Chong Mek border crossing into Laos, after receiving military intelligence that these were being routed to Cambodian troops. This is what the Thai Defense Ministry Rear Admiral Surasant Kungsiri has said. Our intention is not to cause impacts on the Lao people or government, he said at a press conference. The Laotian Foreign Ministry has not responded at this time. The military is also considering limiting the movement of Thai vessels into high-risk areas in Cambodian waters where they could be fired upon, the Navy said. You have drone attacks and airstrikes. Cambodia has said Thai forces are using heavy artillery and F-16 on fighter jets to strike the Siem Reap province, which houses the country's second largest city, major tourist center of Angkor Wat. It is also noteworthy that the number of fighter jets and cluster bombs being used by the Thai military to attack Cambodia has been increasing significantly. So we're seeing an increase in escalation in aggression. Bangkok, Thailand insists that the end of current fighting must start with a cessation of hostilities by the other side and a clear ceasefire proposal, even as Phnom Penh maintains that it is defending itself against military actions by its neighbors. So that kind of rhetoric coming out of Thailand is what you always see, right? That's very Russia. Like, they have to stop, Russia says stop. The official narrative, right, is so, we're restricting movement and we're blocking fuel into Laos from Chong Mek, so they can basically say, hey, don't supply our enemy. And they want to close these things. So, however, the really big thing here is, they rely very heavily on fuel smuggled or traded by Laos. So this is a very normal, Cambodia Laos relationship. The Thai has, put in a semi-functional blockade, making it harder for them to import fuel. You have a very clear, disconnect or mismatch in terms of assets and military equipment. You have F-16s and Gripens, which are both some of the best fighter jets in the world. Um, Cambodia has a significant and notable lack of any kind of effective air defense. So, they pretty much Thailand has command and control of the skies in this conflict. So, in that regard, it's very very important that we note that there is pretty much impunity to which Thailand can act here. We saw that a Trump truce is not functional, not happening. And the last thing I think worth noting here is that right now we are looking at a real happening judicial coup in Thailand. Okay, so in August 2025, the PM, who was Pregotarn Shinawatra, she was his daughter. Was the previous prime minister. She basically humiliated Thailand with a leak where they felt humiliated, where she was appeared to be, deferential to the um, Cambodian leader Hun Sen. So this leak went to the military, who is very powerful and influential. They ousted her, and Anutin, who was the Anutin Charn Virakul, came to power. He's an ultranationalist. He authorized military posture, and he started this war. He did. We talked about recently how he did dissolve the parliament entirely, so there is no longer a parliament in Thailand, which makes him the caretaker prime minister, which allows him to basically unilaterally make decisions without the normal, veto power that would exist from the parliament being in place to stop these kind of things, allowing him to consolidate power. He is very close to the Royal Thai Army, which is the foremost power in Thailand. They are a military nation, most certainly. And it's become pretty evident at this point that they are experiencing a coup, and that this war is absolutely pretty much hinged on the nationalism that it can generate and the power consolidation that Anutin can accomplish through conflict. So the Thailand-Cambodia conflict is another very similar to the India-Pakistan deal, where it's largely influenced by nationalism and a need to consolidate power in the country to support a new or existing regime. So there you have it, folks. 4 wars, 4 conflicts that we all need to keep our eyes on, and what it means, why it should matter to you, and the far-reaching implications of those things, and for the countries that they are in and they're from, and what it means for the people who live there. So, this is unfortunately our timeline. This is where we're at, folks. We live in a time where just about everything, we're looking at war on all over the world. The United States is in decline. Our soft power non-existent. The president and the reigning U.S. government is a bunch of hooligans and fascists who don't know what the fuck they're doing. And the United States has effectively just been kind of kicked out. And it's like, everyone has kind of agreed not to like play with the US, but the US has like a really big stick and is like still pretty strong, but eventually they'll burn out and, they won't be as tough. So, I think the US has kind of been relegated to, fuck around, and instead of being a global superpower, it's almost kind of like we've relegated ourselves to being a regional superpower, and then we're turning our military focus to Latin America, um, to embark on some sort of imperialist takeover of the country, so they can build some form of alternative supply chain. It's not going to work though. Doesn't matter. It's going to suck for Latin America. It's going to suck for America, but they're not going to be able to reintegrate so I do think that a lot of this is from a very weakening United States. That's really not able to maybe assert that certain relationships, certain conflicts should not happen in a way they used to be able to do so. So very interesting, and a lot of like conflicts to keep an eye on. So, uh, with all that said, that's what I have for you in today's report. So if you want to support my work, if you want to help me make sure that I can give you these kind of reports every day, get you guys up to speed on these kind of conflicts, and all of these events that are happening worldwide, and help you tie all those things together. That's what I do here. So if you want to be part of that, please consider subscribing to the Firebrand Project, becoming a free subscriber by sharing, liking, commenting, restacking, all of those things. That's one of the best ways you can help me grow, reach more folks, is by engaging in all of those things. And make sure you're also hitting that like button right now. That's really important to kind of help get things out there. So if everyone hits that like button one time, it's going to help when I post a recording later. The show notes, if you just got here, are going to be posted with the recording here in a bit. So you'll see everything that I had to share, as well as my sources, and then my analysis as well. So please go ahead, and I encourage you to check those out if you're interested in that. Last but not least, guys, if you want to become a paid subscriber, that's how this happens. That's how you make this happen. That's how you help me show up here every day. So please, if you would can afford $6 a month, to please come help join the Firebrand Project and become a paid subscriber. I put you on the wall of fire. You get to come to our Friday subscriber live streams that are a ton of fun. We all hang out, watch YouTube videos, laugh, have a good time, and it's a great time. And I really appreciate all of you guys who have become paid subscribers and who will become paid subscribers in the future, because you guys allow me to keep doing this and give you guys this kind of information. So I truly appreciate each and every one of you, and keep an eye out for this report that will be posted a little bit later. As always, my friends, I will see you tomorrow. But until then, burn bright, resist, and I will talk to you all. Oh, last thing, if you want to help me as well, you can scan this QR code or click the link in the recording at the bottom for the Buy Me a Coffee and make a one-time donation. You can do that too, or sign up for subscription plans. Other than that, burn bright, resist, and I will see you all tomorrow.